Ladies and gentlemen, ever felt like you're stuck in a game where the rules keep changing and you're the only one playing for keeps? What if I told you the power to stop being a player in someone else's game starts the moment you refuse to settle for less than you deserve? Stay with me, because what comes next will change how you handle anyone who's been wasting your time forever. So often we find ourselves clinging to the vision of what could be. We build a narrative in our heads that feels so real, so vivid, that we start to believe it more than we believe the reality in front of us. The imagination becomes seductive, a version of the future where everything clicks, where we're seen, loved, chosen. But that future isn't here. And no matter how much we want it to be, desire doesn't make something true. Holding on to that illusion becomes the very thing that holds us back. It's not love. It's attachment dressed as hope. When we stop romanticizing the potential and start observing the reality, everything becomes clearer. What's consistent, what's real, what's tangible? Those are the things that deserve our energy. The rest is a distraction from what we truly need and deserve. It's easy to get pulled into the idea of almost something real, almost something deep, almost a commitment, but almost is still a no. It's a mirage. Looks real from a distance, but disappears when you reach for it. You deserve more than crumbs disguised as a meal. You deserve more than flashes of affection strung together with long silences. When someone shows you inconsistency, it's not your job to decode it. It's your cue to protect your peace. There's a huge difference between having compassion and making excuses, between being patient and tolerating confusion. When someone is ready, their actions won't make you question everything. You won't need to justify their behavior to yourself or your friends. Your time is your currency and you have to spend it wisely. Every hour invested in someone who doesn't show up with clarity is time taken from someone who would. The problem is, we often think we need to understand why things aren't working. We dive into the psychology of someone else, hoping that empathy will bridge the gap. But empathy without boundaries becomes self-abandonment. You can care and still choose yourself. You can feel deeply and still walk away. Choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's self-respect. When you prioritize your peace, you stop chasing chaos. You stop waiting for someone to become who you hoped they would be. You start building your life around what's real instead of what you're trying to manifest out of thin air. Sometimes we mistake emotional chaos for passion. We think the highs and lows are proof that something meaningful is happening. But intensity is not intimacy. Turbulence is not a sign of depth. It's often a red flag waving in slow motion. Real connection doesn't leave you anxious. It doesn't have you questioning your value or your place in someone's life. Love doesn't live in the gray area. It lives in actions, in follow-through, in consistency. The calm that comes with mutual respect is what creates something worth growing. But we don't always see that when we're addicted to the drama. The emotional roller coaster becomes the addiction. And the hardest part is realizing we've been riding a ride that goes nowhere. The truth is, clarity is kind. Confusion, on the other hand, is often a form of control. When you're left guessing, you're left chasing. And when you're chasing, you're not choosing, you're surviving. That's not where love thrives. That's where anxiety lives. If someone's presence brings more doubt than assurance, you don't need to wait for a big betrayal to know it's not right. You already feel it in your gut. That tension, that questioning, that second guessing, it's all information. But we silence our intuition because we don't want to start over. We're afraid of the unknown. We'd rather sit in uncertainty than face the discomfort of moving on. But the price of staying stuck is far higher than the pain of letting go. When you stop investing in fantasy, you free yourself to find reality. You become less reactive and more discerning. You see things for what they are, not what you wish they would be. And that shift changes everything. Suddenly, your self-worth isn't tied to someone else's behavior. It's rooted in your values, your vision, your truth. You realize that love isn't something you have to earn by proving your worth. It's something that grows naturally in the space where two people are equally invested. No games, no guessing, just mutual respect, shared effort, and emotional safety. That's the standard. And when you've spent enough time settling for less, raising that standard feels like liberation. You don't need to be perfect to be worthy of love. You just need to be honest about what you want and courageous enough to walk away when it's not there. The hardest part is not walking away. It's letting go of the dream you created around someone. But dreams built on shaky foundations eventually collapse. And when they do, you realize the peace that comes from finally stepping into truth. That clarity brings space for healing, for growth, for better connection. Every time you let go of something that doesn't serve you, you signal to yourself that you matter, that your time matters, that your heart is not a playground for someone else's indecision. It's not about winning someone over. It's about choosing yourself first. When you make yourself the priority, you stop trying to be the exception to someone's pattern. You recognize that you deserve to be the rule. You stop rewriting your needs to fit someone else's capacity. You start honoring what you feel instead of minimizing it. That's what emotional maturity looks like. That's what self-love sounds like in action. And once you get a taste of that, you won't want to go back to games. You won't want to spend another moment hoping someone changes. You'll be too busy becoming the version of yourself that doesn't settle for less than alignment. You are not hard to love. You are not too much. You are not overthinking. It's just that your body knows when something isn't right. Trust that. Your intuition isn't your enemy. It's your guide. And the moment you stop overriding that inner knowing, life begins to shift. The people who can't meet you will fall away. And yes, that might hurt. But in that space, you make room for someone who shows up without confusion, who matches your energy, and who doesn't make you question your worth. You're not here to play games. You're here to grow, to connect, to build. Let that be your filter moving forward. Let truth lead. And let everything misaligned fall away naturally. You are the standard setter in your life. The way you allow yourself to be treated speaks louder than anything you say. People don't learn your boundaries by accident. They learn them through your actions, your follow-through, and your ability to walk away when lines are crossed. Every time you ignore your gut or shrink yourself to keep the peace, you're teaching others that your needs come second. And it doesn't happen all at once. It starts small. Accepting inconsistency, laughing off disrespect, pretending you're fine when you're not. You think you're being flexible, understanding, or low-managing, but deep down, you know your respect isn't something you demand, it's something you embody. When you own your value, you attract people who already see it. No persuasion needed. It's not about being hard, it's about being clear. Boundaries are not walls, they're doors with locks. They're not meant to shut everyone out, but they are meant to protect your peace. When you have strong boundaries, it doesn't make you cold, it makes you self-aware. It means you know what you need and you're not afraid to express it. You're not looking to control anyone, just to honor your own emotional landscape. There's a big difference between being open and being unguarded. Being available doesn't mean being accessible to behavior that drains or devalues you. There is nothing noble in tolerating mistreatment. Self-respect is a quiet but powerful filter. When it's strong, you don't need to convince anyone of your worth. It's already evident in how you show up. Being chosen should never feel like a reward for enduring confusion. If something only works when you lower your standards, it doesn't work. You weren't born to fit into someone else's version of barely enough. The goal is not to make yourself smaller to be accepted, but to be so grounded in your identity that anyone who can't meet you where you are naturally falls away. You're not difficult, you just have depth, and depth requires someone who can hold space, not play games. When you raise your standard, it might get quiet for a while, but that silence is better than the noise of dysfunction. That space is where healing begins. That gap is where clarity grows. And from that place, everything starts to shift. Sometimes people only rise when there's a consequence. It's not about punishing anyone. It's about reinforcing your self-worth. You don't teach with ultimatums. You teach with distance, with action, with the strength to walk away from what doesn't serve you, People often change not when they are asked, but when they realize they can no longer access the version of you that tolerated their behavior. You don't beg someone to act right. You step away so they can feel the loss of your presence. That absence is the most powerful message you can send. And even if nothing changes on the other side, something changes in you. You stop looking outside for permission to value yourself. You start trusting that what you bring to the table is already enough. You don't need to raise your voice to raise your standard. You don't need to explain your value to anyone who doesn't already treat it with care. Your energy is not up for negotiation. You're not trying to prove yourself. You're trying to protect your peace. The moment you stop needing external validation is the moment you start attracting people who operate on your level. This isn't about superiority. It's about alignment. About no longer entertaining dynamics that drain you. About choosing peace over potential, presence over promises. When you show up rooted in your self-worth, you no longer tolerate things that feel off. You spot the red flags early. You act, not react. That is power. Not everyone deserves access to your energy. Just because someone wants your time doesn't mean they've earned it. You have to become more intentional about who you allow in your space, not from a place of fear, but from a place of deep self-love. Your heart is valuable. Your attention is a privilege. If someone isn't meeting you with honesty, effort, and respect, they don't belong in your inner circle. That's not being harsh. It's being clear about your worth. You get to decide how much of yourself you give to someone. You are not obligated to overextend just because you feel something. Feelings are valid, but they don't excuse behavior that leaves you empty. Protect your energy like it's sacred, because it is. The reality is, people treat you based on what you allow, not what you want. You can hope for more, wish for better, and dream of change. But until your actions reflect those desires, nothing shifts. You have to be the one to break the cycle, to say, this is not enough, and mean it. To walk away, even when your heart is invested. That's the real courage. That's the transformation. You don't get what you deserve, you get what you require. And requiring more doesn't make you high management. It makes you someone who refuses to settle for emotional crumbs. You deserve consistency. You deserve clarity. You deserve to be treated like someone who matters, not sometimes, but all the time. When you start showing up for yourself, everything changes. Your energy gets quieter. You stop explaining, stop overgiving, stop negotiating your needs. You move from proving to protecting, from people-pleasing to peacekeeping. And people will notice. The ones who took you for granted may pull away at them. Your job is not to hold on to people who only show up when it's convenient. Your job is to honor the version of you that no longer entertains chaos. Growth often means disappointing people who benefited from your lack of boundaries. But that discomfort is temporary. The self-trust you build by choosing yourself lasts forever. There's a shift that happens when you stop chasing and start choosing. You stop looking for someone to validate your worth and start validating it through your own actions. You stop settling for being seen occasionally and start requiring to be seen consistently. This isn't about playing hard to get, it's about being hard to forget. Because you carry yourself with such self-respect that it leaves an impression. You're not here to beg for time, effort, or clarity. You're here to receive what aligns with the love you're ready to give. That starts with you, with how you speak to yourself, how you treat yourself, how you show up in moments when it's easier to stay silent. It's all a reflection of the standard you set and uphold. What you allow becomes your norm. And the good news is, you can raise the bar at any time. You don't need to explain your evolution to anyone. You don't need permission to require more. The shift starts internally, with your mindset, your habits, your self-talk. Every time you say no to what doesn't serve you, you say yes to something better. That better may not arrive immediately, but your life starts to feel lighter, more grounded, more aligned. And from that place of strength, you stop reacting to inconsistency and start attracting integrity. The standard is yours to set. Set it high, hold it firm, and watch everything begin to reflect your worth. Clarity is not something you wait to be given. It's something you decide to create. Waiting around for someone to make their intentions known leaves you in emotional limbo, slowly draining your confidence and peace of mind. When something feels uncertain, it's easy to start overanalyzing, rereading messages and seeking hidden meaning in every word or action. But chasing clarity from someone else gives your power away. You're left reacting to someone else's inconsistency rather than responding from your own truth. Real clarity begins with your willingness to see what's already in front of you. If something feels off, it probably is. If you're constantly asking where you stand, the answer isn't in their words, it's in the silence, the delays, the vagueness. You don't need permission to walk away from confusion. You just need the courage to trust what you feel. But when someone's behavior keeps you guessing, it's not exciting, exhausting. Emotional inconsistency is not a puzzle you need to solve. It's a sign you need to protect your peace. You're not here to earn love through decoding signals or justifying mixed messages. That anxiety you feel when you don't know where things stand is a message from your intuition. And yet, instead of listening to it, you may be tempted to wait, to hope, to see if things magically shift. But clarity doesn't come from wishful thinking, it comes from decisive action. If the connection is genuine, there won't be a question about where you fit. Real effort doesn't look like breadcrumbs, it looks like consistency, presence, and emotional honesty. Stop interpreting emotional confusion as complexity. Often it's just a sign that something isn't aligned. Too often we silence our inner voice because we're afraid of losing something that isn't even fully there. But what are you really losing when you walk away from ambiguity? You're not losing love, you're losing the illusion of love. That's not heartbreak, that's liberation. Clarity is not always comfortable, but it is always kind. It shows you what is real so you can stop fighting what's not. The discomfort of facing the truth is temporary, but the peace that follows is lasting. When you take ownership of your own clarity, you stop outsourcing your worth to someone else's attention. You begin to value your time, your heart, your emotional energy on a whole new level. You realize that it's better to have solitude with certainty than company with confusion. Silence your doubts by acting on them. You don't need someone else to tell you that you're enough. You only need to stop tolerating what makes you question it. Emotional confusion becomes a habit when you constantly allow people to come and go without consequence. You begin to shrink your expectations to match their inconsistencies. You justify poor treatment by labeling it complicated or not ready. But here's the truth. Readiness shows up in action. And where there's genuine effort, there's no room for games. If something leaves you anxious more than it brings you peace, that's not love, it's emotional chaos. And the longer you stay, the more you internalize that your worth is negotiable. Clarity starts the moment you decide your peace is more important than potential. You set the tone for how others engage with you by refusing to tolerate the gray area. The longer you wait for someone else to define the relationship, the more you drift from your own power. Waiting puts you in a passive role, hoping, analyzing, holding back parts of yourself. But you're not here to be in limbo. You're here to build, to connect, to grow. And growth can't happen in a space filled with uncertainty. The moment you stop trying to fit into someone else's vague intentions is the moment you start showing up fully for yourself. Clarity often means having hard conversations, risking discomfort, and being willing to walk away if your values aren't met. But that's how you grow your self-trust. By standing firm in your need for truth, you invite better alignment into your life. You create space for something real to take root. Stop thinking you need more time to figure it out. What you need is more honesty with yourself. If you're not being met with consistency, if you're unsure about your place, if you're constantly hoping things will settle, then you already have your answer. Clarity isn't something you wait for. It's something you act on. And sometimes the clearest message is in what isn't being said. If someone wanted to make you feel secure, you'd feel secure. If someone wanted you to know they were all in, you'd know. Ambiguity is rarely accidental. It often keeps you emotionally tethered while offering nothing solid. You don't have to stay where you're not being fully seen. Trusting your discomfort is the first step toward creating the clarity you crave. Taking control of your clarity doesn't require drama, it requires alignment. You don't need to force conversations or demand declarations. All you need is to observe and respond accordingly. What patterns do you see? What's repeated even after you've expressed your needs? That's your truth. It's not your job to fix or chase anyone. It's your job to honor what you see. When you stop excusing behavior that hurts or confuses you, you begin to operate from strength, not fear. You stop giving energy to situations that offer no return. And in that space, your standards become non-negotiable. Clarity is not about control, it's about peace. Peace comes when your values are matched, when your emotional safety isn't constantly on trial. That's what you deserve. That's what's possible when you stop settling for the unknown. There is nothing wrong with needing clarity. There is nothing wrong with wanting to know where you stand. You're not needy, dramatic, or overthinking. You're emotionally mature. You are allowed to want something steady. You are allowed to ask for honesty, effort, and direction. What you're not allowed to do is sacrifice your emotional well-being to accommodate someone else's avoidance. That's not loyalty, that's self-abandonment. The moment you feel you're betraying your needs to keep someone around, you've already started losing yourself. But you can shift, you can draw the line, you can reclaim your voice, your pace, your path. And when you do, everything changes. You stop hoping for clarity from the outside and start creating it from the inside. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away quietly. No drama, no explanation, just the silent declaration that your peace is no longer up for negotiation. You don't need to argue for your worth. You don't need to plead for clarity. You only need to remember who you are and what you're no longer willing to accept. The closure you're looking for is not always a conversation, it's a decision. It's the moment you realize that your time is precious and your heart deserves a home, not a battlefield. From that place you rise, from that choice you grow. And in that growth, you attract the kind of clarity that doesn't need to be chased. It arrives naturally, grounded in mutual truth. Clarity is your compass. When you lean into it, life gets simpler. Decisions become easier. You start choosing people who choose you without resistance or confusion. You start creating a life that feels honest, peaceful, and free. You no longer get hooked by the thrill of maybe. You're anchored by the power of yes and no. You're no longer willing to entertain the middle ground that leaves you unsure and unsteady. You know who you are, you know what you bring, and now you know what you will no longer tolerate. The most magnetic thing about you is your self-trust. Own it. Live by it. Let it guide you toward relationships that reflect your clarity, not distract you from it. ChatGPT said, energy is a precious resource, and how you invest it defines the quality of your relationships. It's easy to give your time and heart to people who don't reciprocate the effort. But that imbalance leaves you feeling drained and undervalued. The truth is, the energy you put out is the energy you attract. When you prioritize yourself and honor your needs, you create a natural filter that draws in people who respect and match your effort. It's not about demanding attention or proving your worth. It's about recognizing that your emotional bandwidth deserves respect. The moment you start valuing your own energy, you stop chasing those who take it for granted. Instead, you attract connections built on mutual care and intention. Investing in people who reciprocate your effort means you no longer tolerate one-sided relationships. You stop overextending to gain approval or affection and begin to expect balance. When you constantly give more than you receive, it creates an emotional debt that weighs you down. True connection is a two-way street where both people show up consistently and with genuine intention. You can feel the difference in energy. When someone invests in you, their presence is steady, their actions align with their words, and their care feels authentic. That kind of energy uplifts and nourishes you rather than draining or confusing you. When you shift your focus to these balanced exchanges, your relationships become healthier and more fulfilling. It's important to remember that energy is not infinite. You don't have to spread yourself thin to prove you care. Giving your attention and emotional availability to those who don't appreciate it is a misuse of your precious resources. This doesn't mean you have to be guarded or closed off. It means you choose wisely. You're selective with who you give your time to because you know your energy has value. The people who respect that will meet you halfway. They'll show up when it matters, communicate honestly, and treat your feelings with care. Investing your energy wisely creates space for relationships that feel genuine and supportive, not exhausting or one-sided. Sometimes the hardest part is recognizing when you're giving too much to someone who doesn't match your energy. It's easy to fall into patterns of hoping someone will change or finally show up as you need. But hope without action keeps you stuck in a cycle of imbalance. You may try to convince yourself that effort isn't the most important thing or that emotional availability will come in time. However, consistent investment is a basic foundation for any meaningful connection. If you find yourself always initiating, always waiting, always adjusting, that's a clear sign to reevaluate. Protecting your energy means setting boundaries around how much you give before it's reciprocated. Investing energy in the right people also means prioritizing your own emotional health. When you spend time with those who value you, you feel energized, supported, and seen. Their energy doesn't compete with yours, it complements it. You find that you want to give more because it feels natural and rewarding, not because you feel obligated. That kind of relationship strengthens your confidence and encourages growth. On the other hand, when energy is unbalanced, it chips away at your self-esteem and leaves you questioning your worth. Choosing to invest in people who match your effort is a form of self-care. It's a declaration that your well-being matters and that you won't settle for less. There's a difference between love and energy investment. Love is often spoken about as unconditional, but energy is conditional. It requires balance. You can love someone deeply and still decide to stop giving your energy if it's not returned. That's not a failure or lack of love, it's wisdom. Love thrives when it's nurtured by mutual effort. Without that, it becomes exhausting and one-sided. When you learn to recognize the difference between love and energy investment, you free yourself from guilt around saying no or stepping back. You understand that preserving your energy is necessary for sustainable relationships. It's not selfish to protect your emotional reserves, it's essential. When you stop chasing energy from people who don't reciprocate, you create space for those who do. The universe has a way of balancing out when you respect your own value. The more you prioritize your energy, the more you attract individuals who operate on the same frequency. These are people who show up with intention, who communicate openly, and who make you feel secure. You begin to notice that your connections become simpler and more genuine. You don't have to overthink or negotiate your worth because it's already clear. Investing energy wisely means you surround yourself with people who lift you higher rather than hold you back. It's a transformative shift that leads to healthier, more joyful relationships. The process of valuing your energy often requires unlearning old patterns. You may have been taught to give endlessly without expecting much in return, or to sacrifice your needs for the sake of connection. But true intimacy isn't about depletion, it's about balance. It takes courage to step back and say, I need to protect my energy. This courage grows as you practice self-awareness and set clear boundaries. You become more attuned to how different interactions affect you emotionally and physically. When something drains you, you recognize it early and adjust accordingly. This self-awareness becomes your greatest tool for preserving your energy and cultivating meaningful relationships. Investing your energy wisely also means being mindful about where your focus goes. Social media, casual acquaintances, and toxic relationships can all sap your emotional reserves if you're not careful. It's important to identify what and who drains you versus what energizes and uplifts you. When you learn to direct your energy intentionally, you reclaim control over your emotional landscape. You stop spreading yourself thin and instead pour your attention into what nourishes your soul. That might mean spending more time with close friends who truly care, engaging in activities that bring you joy, or simply taking quiet moments to recharge. Your energy is your power, and how you use it shapes your entire life experience. Ultimately, the people who deserve your energy are those who show up consistently. Not just when it's convenient or when they want something. They value your time and feelings, and they prioritize the relationship as much as you do. This mutual investment creates a foundation of trust and respect that withstands challenges. You don't have to convince these people to care. They already do. When you align your energy with theirs, relationships become a source of strength, joy, and support. They remind you of your worth rather than make you question it. Choosing to invest your energy with intention is an act of self-love that transforms.